Hello, everybody, and welcome to Telling Tales. Here we tell atmospheric stories together through the medium of tabletop role-playing games. As you've caught us on a Monday night, you are watching us play Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. This is now the second episode of our third arc. So it's a bit of an anthology series. The previous arcs, Darkwood and Fingask, are available to view in full on YouTube or our Twitch VODs. And this arc is called Baile. So let's say hi to John, our stream manager. Hi, John.
Hello.
John will be putting pictures on screen and moving cameras around, and hopefully at appropriate points and not just for fun. But who knows what happens behind the curtain. And also giving us rules clarification in chat, and also feeding things back to us from chat later for us to discuss and things. And also all the art is John's as well that will appear on screen. So thanks, John, for creating that wonderful art. And I think that's everything for John for now. Bye, John.
I will go back to the shadows.
So below the video, there are links to our Twitch and YouTube, depending on which one you're watching us on, our social media, Twitter and Instagram, our Patreon, which you can join and come and chat to us about all things tabletop role-playing games or other. And did I say Discord or Patreon? I meant Discord for that, and our Patreon, which you can join. And there are various levels of reward for your monetary support of the channel, ranging from access to secret hidden parts of the Discord where you get behind the scenes information from us about things and things like that, all the way up to Matt, who runs other games on the channel, running a game for you and your friends once a month. Which is a great thing to have. So yeah, please click those links and come and join us on some of those places. Other things that happen on the channel, so Call of Cthulhu's Monday nights, Tuesday nights at the moment, Blades in the Dark, Wednesday night Simba Room, which is a free league system that we're very fond of. The first Saturday of every month, we have a different one-shot adventure run by different people and with different players. So far we've had Alien, Troika, Morkborg, Fiasco, The Expanse, Honey Heist, and the new One Ring from Free League as well. The next one is Saturday, September the 5th. We don't know what that will be yet. And the other thing that we do is we have a guest spot on the Free League Twitch every other Sunday, running Simba Room again, but a different story. So the next one is this coming Sunday, the 15th. So hopefully we'll catch some of you in some of those places. So on to the story. We'll do a little catch up on last week first. So I think if we can have Matt on first, who plays Dane. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
So, beginning of a new story, characters from the two previous stories thrust together, not knowing each other. Why don't you tell us about how that began?
Yeah, sure. So all of the characters from the previous two arcs received a letter. The letter was basically inviting the recipient to come to Iona, to the Isle of Iona, and highlighted that tickets are already booked and they hope to see the recipient as soon as possible. It was signed off by two people, by Mary Brown and by Reverend John Moore, who were kind of variously familiar to the characters depending on which arc they were in before. So we've got, for the four characters with us today, Jemima, she received a letter through the post, alongside her bills, and kind of took it into her office to open up and read. Around her, she was reading this, was sort of a number of sort of historical tomes and various books and bits of research, all kind of quite arcane, that she'd gathered together over the preceding years. She also had a cage in the room with a white mouse, with one of these tomes pushed up against it. she kind of, upon reading this, very hurriedly starts packing, and this is the first contact she's had with anything kind of strange in all this time. So she's very quick off the mark, begins to gather her things together. Just before she does, she takes a bit of dust from an experiment she's been running and throws it over the letter to see if anything happens. Nothing does happen, but she doesn't seem fully satisfied. But then she continues to pack and kind of heads on her way. Dane is back from India, due to present his report on the survey of India in London. As he checks into his hotel, he finds the letter there waiting for him. And after some investigation, after receiving it, he finds that his work commitments have been cancelled by an unknown party, and he's been given authority to take some leave, which he takes as meaning he's been given. Someone has pulled the strings to get him out of his work commitments and free him up to travel to Iona. So he is kind of ready to go as well. Edmund receives his while again at home. He actually gets 2 letters. He gets one for himself and he gets one for Eliza as a kind of care of letter. He reads it slowly. He's surrounded by paintings and kind of strange images of hares and a ringmaster and other kind of like experiments scattering the room. And he also has, as he's reading the letter on his desk next to him, he has some kind of drawings, sketches and writings of all kinds of kind of unimaginable things. He phones Eliza's place of work and then just writes a few personal letters to let people know where he's going, and he kind of starts packing as well. Eliza, kind of less coherent in her response, maybe. She kind of gets the message, doesn't really tell anybody, including her employer, what she's doing. She's got a bit of a go bag anyway, because she's been kind of living out of a suitcase for some time. She receives this, just drops everything while she's at work, takes her kind of go bag and rushes off to travel up to Iona.
Yeah. So then everybody apart from Edmund kind of bumped into each other at King's Cross to some degree. And Dane and Jemima had a little run-in with each other, and I think Jemima potentially threw Eliza a couple of coins, thinking that she was in need as she was asleep on a bench. And then the train made its way north and eventually ended up meeting up with Edmund. So I think if Steve can come on. Hi, Steve.
Hi there.
So reunited.
Yes. So Edmund catches sight of Eliza fairly rapidly. They have a quick discussion as they change trains at Glasgow. At that point, they're not aware of Dane or Jemima, so they hop on board the next train, which is on the way to Finnefort. Is that right?
Yes.
And Edmund starts talking, as he is wont to do, to Eliza about the various things that he's been researching, and one of which is this old pamphlet that a sort of 60-odd page pamphlet that he managed to find in some old bookstore, maybe from a collection of somebody who died, something like that. And so he tells Eliza about this book, which is essentially the translations or purported translations of these objects known as the Eltdown shards, these sort of bits of ceramic, ancient ceramic found in the south of England. And it's all rather strange. He doesn't believe it entirely, but he doesn't, he's keeping an open mind. But essentially, these texts suggest that there was another race, another civilization named the Yithians, which had somehow managed to come from some distant planet elsewhere and were present in the long distant past on the Earth. So yes, they're able to project their minds into other bodies. So that was Edmund's reading material for the train journey. And then we continue, and yes, Jemima overhears these conversations as the train gets quieter, and we're the last few people in the carriage as we approach Finnefort. So Jemima heads over and interjects, and we introduce ourselves to each other and realise that we have a shared destination.
Yeah, so I think if Sam can come on, who plays Jemima. Hey, Sam.
Hello.
Do you want to take us from that point?
Yeah, so I kind of noticed Edmund and Eliza having a conversation that seemed conspicuous. I basically put the letter down straight upon the table, announcing, making it clear why I was there and stopping any kind of cover-up of strange discussions. I hadn't really discussed much with Dane because I feel like Dane isn't... Certainly, I wouldn't say uninterested, but I don't think he's quite the type to have got so fastidiously obsessed with what's happened compared to perhaps the other three characters after this. So, I kind of came over. We immediately got discussing, and quite quickly I realised that Jemima and Edmund actually had corresponded before this point, sending letters after Edmund discovered a paper that I published in a small journal. And yeah, there was some further discussion. Fill in a few things as well there. I think Jemima probably having not had the opportunity to kind of discuss it really with anyone, because Dane up to this point wasn't quite of the inclination, had a kind of more in-depth discussion with Edmund briefly about what she'd been doing, experiments she had tried to do with the books that she discovered, explained the books that she had discovered. Let me know if having mic problems. Okay, if we're okay now. Sorry about that. I'll let you know. Let me know if there's a problem again. She explained the two books that she's kind of managed to acquire from old bookshops, the Azathoth and Others, and the Sussex Manuscript. Two kind of books looking really at historical relations to strange goings on, and these ones kind of stood out among all the different things she could discover as kind of relationships going to the distant past of things that just couldn't be explained by anything that she would understand, for like the scientific method in any standard manner. And there were certainly some odd things she managed to kind of, I'd say, practice and prepare to a certain extent with them, although we might get into that a bit later. She also experimented with, as we heard before, putting these books in front of other animals to see if they would have an effect. As it seems like you don't need to read them, you just need to perceive them potentially, although nothing happened, and she hypothesizes that they don't hold enough power within them, or they aren't truly from somewhere else, kind of the comparison of the Bible being the word of God written by man, as opposed to being actually literal from other realms, sort of thing. Anyway, after that discussion, we kind of all introduced ourselves, and then it was quite a long train ride until we eventually arrived and could get on the ferry to cross to Iona. It was pretty grim and raining and dark by that point. We have made ourselves known to the ferrymaster, who looked at us a bit glumly and then let us pass on. It sounded like not many people travelled on the ferry. It was mostly goods, but it was comfortable enough. The crossing wasn't difficult. When we got to the far side, we met with Reverend, what the priest? What's his name? Moore. Reverend
John Moore.
Thank you. Yes, and he was fairly friendly. We kind of conversed briefly, but overall, he didn't really give us very much. He didn't really tell us anything. We settled ourselves in a rather nice pub with a lovely couple who were very overly friendly and a little intrusive in our conversations. I think the only other conspicuous thing that came up in conversation when we were in the pub as well was we kind of tried to get what we could out of Reverend Moore, and he did mention that, well, when we mentioned the book, discussed the book, the book that's kind of tied the two stories together so far, this great mysterious tome that seems to have affected us so much, and which Jemima managed to read some of, he seemed to suggest that they didn't have it anymore, which is really rather worrying. That's probably about all that.
Cool. So the group are staying at the Argyle Hotel, and I think we're quite taken with their hosts, William and Kate, who were very, very welcoming and provided delicious food and freshly drawn hot baths. If we can bring Inga on, who plays Eliza. Hey, Inga.
Hiya.
Do you want to just go through kind of the end of last session, the very end?
Yeah, so we, as Sam said, we kind of chatted and kind of shared stories a little bit, heard some disturbing things about the book being missing, had some baths drawn for us by our lovely hosts, had a nightcap and had a bath and went to bed, and we kind of wake up the next morning with just a vague recollection of a dream that we all had, which was a green ray passed through our vision, became a small hillock, and then a cross lowered itself onto the hillock, and then just everything kind of faded, withered away into black. And that's all the kind of vague memory we have of the dream.
That's right. So you all wake on the morning of Friday, November 22nd, 1929. And you all have the vague memory of that dream that Inga has just recounted. No sort of, I'm aware that Jemima and Dane have been woken, having had a strange dream the first night that they've stayed somewhere. And, following that, there was also a kind of strange event, and then presumably some kind of feeling of dread or bad things having happened. There's not particularly a negative feeling associated to this dream. It's all very abstract and just a bit strange. But yes, you all wake at a reasonably similar time.
Did the dream? This is probably a funny sort of question, but was it a perfectly normal dream, or did it feel a bit odd? Would I wake up and be like, I should go and ask if everyone else had this dream, or I wouldn't?
No, you would probably just think, oh, that was a bit weird. It's kind of, you wouldn't necessarily remember it all instantly either. You'd kind of have a bit of a, and then later on, you might kind of, put it back together a little.
Okay. I imagine Jemima probably wakes almost a little surprised at how peaceful the night that was. Then.
Yes. Yeah. Same for Edmund, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, head downstairs, grab whatever's on offer for breakfast, and see if anyone else is available to chat and get on with the day, I think, for Eliza.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. A pot of tea?
Oh, yes, please. That'd be lovely. Is anybody else up just yet?
You're the first year?
You haven't seen the Reverend then? No.
No, I would expect him to be here probably within the next half an hour.
Oh, right. Well, I suppose I best enjoy some breakfast then. Yes, we'll start with the pot of tea. That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Yes, of course. She heads off back into the kitchen and reappears momentarily with a pot of tea. Other people heading down?
Yes, I think so, yes. As I say, sort of pleasantly surprised by not having been woken in the night by weird buzzing sounds.
I think Jemima is probably, maybe when Edmund is like moving past the room to head down, Jemima is like closely inspecting the back of her door. She's not particularly concerned. She's just, checking what things she knows.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Can we see anything from our rooms from the window?
Yeah, there are some. The hotel's kind of slightly raised, so it's a few steps up from the street. So there are a couple of houses straight across the street from you, but then you essentially get a view out to the coast from where you are. So there's a bit of morning mist at the moment, but you can kind of pick out that you can actually see to the edge of the island. Especially if it were a clear day, you would have once the sun pierces through, you'd have a great view over. So just kind of rolling fields over to the past the two houses that are opposite you.
Okay. I think Dana's definitely picked up the habit of sort of wanting to get a lay of the land whenever he can. So he maybe, before he heads down, he's just going to be kind of looking out the window for a while until he thinks he's got his bearings as best he can, and then maybe follow down when he hears the last of the footsteps heading down.
Okay. So Kate's kind of reappearing out of the kitchen every couple of minutes with tea, and then she brings out some bread, some proper butter again, and some what she assures you are sort of locally sourced meat and cheese from on the island, all locally created food, and says, "Can I get you anything else?"
Do you have any eggs?
Oh, yes, I can do some eggs. How would you like them?
Oh, scrambled egg would be lovely, thank you.
Of course, yes. She disappears off and then reappears a few moments later with some scrambled eggs.
Thanking her and tucking into my scrambled egg. Kind of still a little overwhelmed at how peaceful and nice this whole trip has been so far.
I'm sure that will change. Good morning, everybody. How did you sleep?
Peacefully.
Much better than I expected.
Yes.
I was almost a bit fearful of hearing something funny in the night again, but no, just slept right through, I think.
Seems we've had remarkably similar experiences, doesn't it?
You had serious noises in the middle of the night as well.
No, not exactly, but we had strange dreams in the night. Group dreams brought on by... I mean, I'm assuming the lady isn't here at this point.
No.
Assuming she's not nearby, I'll just say, yes, group dreams brought on by strange drawings on... Well, perhaps by the strange drawings on our doors. I don't know.
Not quite like what we experienced, but I suppose there's a lot of strange things out in the world that we're not all familiar with, so perhaps not so unusual.
As I say, as we said yesterday, I worry there's a lot more than we have discovered so far. We're just going to keep getting more questions. Still, better to find these things out.
Yeah, speaking of which, I have no sign of the Reverend just yet. Apparently he might be here in about half an hour or so. I was quite keen to find out exactly what is going on.
Did he say, what's the name? Mary. What's the last name? Sorry.
Brown.
Did he say when Mrs. Brown would be here?
Hopefully today.
I hope so.
I think was 8:30 mentioned, something like that. I can't recall.
Well, I suppose
I thought it was early.
We can hope so. Are you downstairs by now, by the way, Dane?
Yeah, I think I've just probably come down in the middle of this conversation and just taken a seat.
I think you were like just long enough that Jemima was just starting to go like, I wonder if I should go check on Dane.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Did you have a peaceful night as well?
Yeah, surprisingly so. Slept like a log. How about everybody else?
Yes, very, very pleasant. Okay, yeah.
Just waiting for the mysterious happenings to start going on now that we're all awake.
Well, we've had a smooth train journey. We've had a smooth sleep. 2 wins so far.
Well, I'm not exactly sure if they're wins. I mean, we're all here for one purpose, and we're not here for everything to go, but nothing to happen, if you see what I mean.
Exactly. Almost afraid we're in the wrong place. Everything's quite normal.
Something tells me that's not going to last.
You hear the sound of what you presume to be some kind of Scottish folk song coming from the kitchen, mildly off key.
Not warbling in pitch or anything.
No.
It doesn't sound a bit insect-like.
No, quite homely.
Nice.
See, they're musicians as well. Quite the polymaths.
Yeah, I imagine probably just a bit of chit chat over breakfast until.
Yeah. Quite chill, quite calm, nice and relaxed.
Yep. Okay. So after about sort of 25 minutes, the door swings open, and in walks John Moore. Good morning.
Morning. How are you today? How is everything all right with you? We've all had a very peaceful night. Hoping to get on with the day.
Yes, all fine. I might just have a quick word in the kitchen with Kate, and then we can head down to the coast and hopefully catch Mary off the ferry.
Oh, wonderful!
Sounds good.
Yes.
So he does as he says and heads into the kitchen, and you hear the singing stop, and a conversation take place. Not particularly hushed voices or anything. If anybody wants to listen, then you can.
If they're obviously not particularly hushed voices, then I won't. If they were, then I would.
Yeah.
I kind of watch him go and see if they seem like they're trying to be hushed, but then I'm like, nah, it's just the innkeeper. She's not pretending to be part of some strange cult. I'm pretty sure.
Eliza
Yeah,
would
you
totally listen.
Okay, do you want to make a roll? You roll pretty sure that you hear sort of like the chink of a teapot hitting the cup, and she's presumably pouring him a drink, and they're just having a conversation.
I rolled a 92. That's not no.
I like the image of Jemima looking a bit like, maybe I should go and listen, and then Eliza just stands up behind her and immediately walks off to listen. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so you basically don't overhear any more than everybody else, which is just the relatively pleasant tone of conversation, and the occasional slurp of tea. And after a couple of minutes, Reverend Moore comes back out of the kitchen and says, "Right, if everybody is ready, does anybody? It's not warm out there. If anybody wants an extra layer, it wouldn't go amiss."
I'll just go get my jacket quick. It won't be a moment.
Yeah, Dane will do the same.
Yeah, and grab any of the extra bits of the torches and bits and bobs like that I wouldn't have brought down to breakfast, but now that we seem to be off exploring out into the world.
I was expecting you to say pitchforks as well, actually.
I mean, she'll have a gun on her
That's
again.
Jemima's gone to get a trusty camera as well, of course.
So yeah, a stroll down towards the coast, and as I said, there is still a little bit of mist, but you can certainly see better than you could last night. So you pass past some buildings, and then you're on kind of a path down to the coast. The only other building that you pass on the way is a farmhouse, and you're just kind of wandering down this track through this lovely scenery for just a few minutes before you get to the where you were dropped off by the ferry last night. And you can see it actually coming across the water towards you.
While we're having this little walk, I was going to have a quick conversation with Reverend Moore.
Mm-hmm.
So, Reverend Moore, how do you and Mrs. Brown know each other?
Well, I met her actually by, well, I think it was happenstance, but I suppose some might call it fate, or perhaps it was planned by somebody that I'm not aware of. But it's through our mutual awareness that we have become closer.
I'll just kind of look around at everyone else.
Sounds rather familiar.
I don't pry any further.
So yeah, you stand and wait for the ferry to pull in, and as it gets a little closer, you can actually see that Mary is stood on the kind of outside area. Obviously, when you were coming, it was raining. It's not raining now, although she's probably the humidity's probably quite high coming through the mist, but. And then it pulls up, and the same man that you saw last night gets off, ties off the rope, kind of looks over at you all, and doesn't give you much of a look of anything, and then helps Mary off the ferry with a hand, and she steps off and gives him a small nod and kind of wipes her coat down, and then walks over towards you all. So obviously Edmund and Eliza know that this is definitely Mary Brown. Jemima and Dane would have to presume at this point. And she walks up to the group of you and gives you, kind of looks around the group with a very small smile and a kind of it's sort of a slightly sad smile that she gives you all, and then she reaches and gives Reverend Moore a small hug, and then says, Mr. Carter, and goes to shake your hand. Miss Smith, and you must be, and John Moore says, this is Dr. Jemima Wallace and Mr. Dane Harrow, and she shakes each of your hands as well. And she says, right, John, shall we head to our accommodation? Yes, we may, yes. Lead the way. So he kind of heads off ahead of you slightly. And she hangs back kind of with your group, and says, so, how are you all?
I'm surprisingly well rested. It's fantastic to see you again, Mrs. Brown. I'm so excited to receive your letter. Thank you so much for calling on us.
It's nice to see you too, Miss Smith, Mr. Carter.
Yes, very good to see you. Yes, the wildlife is much more amenable around here.
Yes, thus far.
Thus far.
Jemima is opening her pocketbook at the lions lining it. I think Jemima then goes, it's good to meet you, Mrs. Brown. I've already heard much about your exploits from our fellows here. Very curious to see what this meeting will bring.
Yes, and I have heard of yours, Dr. Wallace and Mr. Harrow, from Reverend Moore. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work together, and we'll discuss when we reach the house. But I'm hopeful that some kind of resolution that we'll discuss when we get to the house. So you're walking through the mist. It's lifting slightly. You can kind of see the globe of light that you think must be the sun attempting to break through the mist. Just just to the right of you, and a few minutes, you actually turn and pass your hotel and kind of walk further down that street, and actually out past the end of what is basically the village of Ballamore. And a couple of minutes further along that lane is another sort of stone house with a gate and fence along the front. And Reverend Moore.
Are we seeing many people while we walk through the village? Is it like quite?
There are a couple of people out and about. It's not buzzing. There are about, I think we discussed last week that there are probably about 80 people that live on the island. Some of which also are in kind of more remote farms as well. So it's not like they're all here. It's certainly not buzzing, but there is sort of, there's a school for the kids that are here, and there's a couple of other little local things.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything seems pretty normal about them as we pass by.
Yeah.
Good.
You get people, if you say hello to anybody or nod or smile at them, they'll kind of do the same back. But you get a little bit of a strange look from them because you're somebody who isn't from the island and it's not a touristy season, and they probably wonder why you're there.
They recognize everyone on the island and you're not them.
Yeah.
Are they paying any particular attention to anyone else in the group?
So it's difficult for you to say. John Moore is dressed sort of not as a priest currently, so he's in his kind of casual clothes. Mary has come in quite fine clothing. She's not wearing, like a ball dress or anything, but she certainly looks better dressed than any of you and anybody else that you've seen wandering around the island. So she's getting a couple of looks. You don't know whether it's because of that, or she is, for those who are aware, I know Eliza is, that she, you are, like, it's in the letter, but she is the MP for here. This is part of her constituency. So whether or not the people that pass are aware of that, you don't know how much she's gone around talking to people. So it could be that is the reason that people are looking at her. So yeah, everybody's getting a bit of a look, but certainly you think that she is probably getting more of a look than everyone else. But it could just be her fancy clothes. Reverend Moore turns and goes into this house, opens the door, and immediately kind of leaves the door open for you all to enter. And the first person to go in kind of sees that he goes straight over to the fireplace and starts lighting a fire, which he is probably sensibly put out before leaving to come and see you. So it's still kind of smoking in there, but he starts getting that going again. And Mary Brown waits until last, lets you all pass her, and then closes the door behind her. So what you've entered into is kind of a sitting room area, stone floor, but kind of rugged carpets down, fireplace at one end, a window at the other, and table which has a number of papers strewn out across it. There are also some papers up on the walls. It looks to be, pretty intensely investigative in here. There is a door through to another room, and you can tell from outside that this is a two-story building. So there are more rooms, but this one's kind of closed at the moment, and this is where you are being housed. There are a number of there are a couple of comfortable seats, and then a number of what are clearly sort of wooden seats that have been grabbed to allow more seating for you when you arrive, presumably. So Mary says, please, everybody, take a seat. Reverend Moore's still kind of got the billows in the fire.
I think Jemima will perhaps, before taking a seat, just say to the Reverend, is there anything we can do to help, Mr. Moore?
No, please, you take a seat.
In that case, I will take a seat, trying not to too intensely read all the notes on the table, but failing. Jemima's scanning quite intensely already. Don't worry about explaining what I see to me too.
If anybody looks at Mary while this is happening, she kind of gives a sort of solitary chuckle as she spots Jemima kind of poring over all of this stuff on the table.
If she chuckles at me, I kind of sit up and make it so that I'm just, oh, yes. Just scratching my nose.
Nice.
She says, anybody for a cup of tea? It's not particularly warm in the house, even though the fire's not been out for that long.
Yes, please. Although I suppose I'll have to wait because the fire's not going yet.
Well, she actually goes through to the kitchen and, she reappears a couple of moments later, probably just after the fire's fully been got going, with a cup of tea for everybody. And her and Reverend Moore both sit down, and she says, I would like to thank you all for coming here. I'm aware that there wasn't much in the way of explanation, but, well, as I'm sure Reverend Moore said, obviously we have a fine line to tread between giving enough information to get people to play along and not so much that anybody reading would be concerned that a member of Parliament has, well, gone off the rails, perhaps. You may have noticed some of the villagers sort of looking at us a little strange as we passed. What we have brought you here to help us with is it's very strange, but it's, well, different to the things that you've experienced previously, we believe, in that it's something that's already happened. In a way. Yes. There's been a death on the island. A woman by the name Nora Fanario. Although I think most people called her Netta.
That's a very unusual name for up here.
Doesn't sound very Scottish.
After a little research, the reason that we're interested in this will become apparent, but I'm starting from the beginning. She was born in Egypt. Italian father, English mother. Hence the name. The Italian father, I presume, has chosen that. Mostly grew up in Italy, then moved to London, and became involved in a number of occult groups.
Occult?
Yes. Well, we're researching exactly who she was involved with, what groups. What we are hoping is that perhaps you can do some work on the ground here while we investigate the bigger picture, as it were.
If you don't mind me asking, who is we? Is it simply you and Reverend Moore, or are there others investigating these things? Reverend Moore was reluctant to answer this question. I suppose I understand.
Well, as Reverend Moore, I believe, may have alluded to at the moment, everybody here is everybody that is looking into this.
Okay.
We have contacts for the work that we are doing on the bigger picture things, but it's too much to do that and look here at the same time, and we're worried that something might go cold if we have less bodies looking at it. So
I think Dane is probably kind of looking at the rest of the group as this is being kind of discussed to get he's trying to get a sense of whether this is what other people were expecting, or whether they're surprised or not. But he probably doesn't say anything else.
I think Jemima was expecting that, and she kind of has that on her face. When she asked the we, that was kind of what she was suspecting.
How did this death come to your attention, Mary? Mrs. Brown?
We, as I've said, we have contacts, and we tend to keep an eye on. There are code words that the police use for when things are a little strange, perhaps. We tend to keep an eye out for those kinds of things. Well, when she was found a few days ago, we caught wind of it quite quickly.
So she wasn't known to you beforehand? You weren't following her or anything like that?
No. It's the nature of her death, really, that has perplexed us somewhat.
So it's her death that is of interest to you rather than her dealings before with these occult groups?
And the times... Yes, although we believe it may all be interlinked. She was found by a couple of men on top of a cross that had been cut into the earth. Well, apart from a silver chain with a cross around her neck, she was completely unclothed. Now, obviously, the police who found her knew that she wasn't a native Ionan, as I'm sure you can imagine. They're aware of everybody here. Yes, all very strange. And then the cross that she was wearing around her neck had turned black.
A theistic cross, Christian?
Yes.
Does this jog any memories of the dream for us?
Quite possibly. I'll leave that up to you as to whether you think you've recalled enough and would link it together. But yeah, it's probably enough.
seems vaguely familiar, but I can't quite place it. I don't think. I mean, it certainly wasn't anything to do with our last experience.
What metal did you manage to determine? What metal the cross was made of? Was it silver or was it?
We believe it was a silver cross. Yes.
That should not tarnish. How did she die?
There's no evidence of foul play.
Natural causes?
We haven't yet been able to determine a cause of death.
Do the police still have the body? I'm assuming you don't have access to it then.
Not easily.
Is it on the island?
And how old was she? If we're talking about natural causes.
33.
Natural causes does not seem to be quite the right turn of phrase.
That may be what the police would say. I would suspect in our case it's going to be unexplained causes.
And, sorry, what work has already been done on this? Has this been written off already and everybody's moved on, or are we starting from scratch?
By official channels, it's basically been, well, no official ruling given yet, but we believe it will be put down as accidental death.
Misadventure. That'll be it. They always say misadventure.
We do have a few names of people that it may be good for you to talk to begin investigations. There's she was staying with a Mrs. McCrae, we believe, who owns a farm to the north of Ballamore. The two men who found her, their names are Cameron Ferguson and Jimmy Docherty. And we've managed to track down a name of one of Netta's friends, which, depending on how your investigations are going and how ours are going, we can anybody can contact her. But her name is Dion Fortune.
Do we know where she died? Can we visit the site of this incident?
Yes, I was going to suggest that John and I lead you there today so that you know where that is.
It's a good idea. What do we do about the police as well? I mean, we're just some people here, surely. I mean, how are we going to go to barging in and say we're investigating this? It's not like we're professionals, or at least can claim so.
She pulls out some scraps of paper and passes you each a folded up note and says, "These should keep you from any bother. Within reason. Don't go kicking people's doors down, but if you're asking questions, I don't think that the police will come after you for harassment or..."
What is the note if I unfold and have a look?
It is essentially a letter from Mary, to whom it may concern, advising that she has bestowed upon you official powers to aid with an investigation pertaining to issues relating to the Crown.
This should be helpful. It'll stop the police, I suppose, being a problem. But more importantly, if we want to go asking questions, people aren't going to wonder why we're doing so.
Well, sometimes people don't like to speak to official channels. May depend on who we're speaking with, but you never know. Some people might be more open to speaking to, telling a gory tale to a tourist even. I suppose we'll find out.
Well, you could always default to not showing the note. and bring it out if needs be. As you say, Miss Smith, people react better to different different methods.
Once it's known, I think it will be known to everybody on this island. I think as soon as any one person knows, the whole place will know.
You'd be surprised how insular some people can be, even in a community as small as this.
How long do we have leave to work on this?
Is that in character to Mary?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure for a second.
Well, Mr. Harrow, if you're concerned about your place of work, as long as we need, I can update them as things progress if need be. I would hope, based on the small number of people that could possibly be involved, that the investigation would not need to be extended beyond what we have already arranged with your employers.
Okay, that's good to know. And how long will you and Reverend Moore remain with us?
As long as we need. We won't be we won't be leaving the island until the investigation is complete, or at least until the part of the investigation that requires being on the island is complete.
Okay.
You won't be here without us, Mr. Harrow.
Do you think, truthfully, that this is about her, or that this is about something greater that she possessed, or that she was involved with? I don't mean that there is nothing strange going on here. There is clearly something strange going on here. I mean, are we looking for something else?
Quite possibly, Dr. Wallace, yes.
Okay. I'm so sorry. To clarify, are you asking us to investigate how she died? Do you suspect there's something else going on actively now within the community that we need to uncover and prevent, or is it all up for grabs? Just yet on complete unknown. We need to find out what we find out.
We don't believe that anything else is going on within this community. Something else may be going on elsewhere with people with whom Netta associated. We believe that if we can figure out what has happened to her and kind of piece together the days leading up to it, then perhaps we can figure out some part of what that might be.
Is Reverend Moore still stoking the fire, or has he kind of come over to join?
He's sat with you, yeah.
Okay. I'll kind of look at Mary Brown and Reverend Moore and say, I'm honestly honoured to be invited here with you to join these investigations and discover more about these whatever is beyond the veil, I suppose is the best way of putting it. But I hope you can answer me truthfully when I ask that the book that we were so, seems to have been so entwined in both of our stories. Do you still have it?
We do not.
Do you know where it is?
We, based on event timings, we believe that it may be with whichever organization Netta was a part of.
This is really quite pressing then. That seems extraordinarily dangerous to be in the wrong hands.
It certainly does. However, it was in the wrong hands for a number of years, and we're still here. So you become accustomed to these things in a way, Miss Smith, and you do as much as you can, but you have to also learn that, well, you can only do so much.
How did it end up in somebody else's hands?
I think Jemima might smirk slightly at Eliza's. Slightly accused of forthrightness. Like, ooh.
Flashbacks.
Well, after the events at which Dr. Wallace and Mr. Harrow were involved, the book was taken and placed in a vault below a church in which Reverend Moore became the pastor. And this vault was locked. Only Reverend Moore had the key. And well, Reverend Moore went in there once, and the book was no longer there.
Does Reverend Moore's face kind of reflect this situation, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he's kind of not looking at anybody, just sort of kind of staring off, listening to the conversation.
In that case, it doesn't sound like it was either of your faults at all. But that is cause for much greater concern than it just happenstance falling into another's hands. That means someone knew where it was and what it was, and perhaps used some other route to get it.
Or the book has some kind of will of its own, says Reverend Moore, while still kind of staring off. You get the feeling that he's decided that's what the case is.
Jemima immediately starts writing notes at that idea.
How much do you know about this other organisation then?
Well, we're not sure exactly which it is. There are a number of occult groups in London. We're just trying to narrow down which one or ones Netta was a member of. Obviously, having the name of one of our friends potentially makes it easier. We can narrow down if Netta's a member of many. Perhaps this Dion there may be a crossover.
Perhaps some of those people travelled from London to here, and they are the ones we should be looking for.
Is it known how long she's been on the island? You mentioned she was staying with Mrs. McCrae.
Yes, we believe it to have been 2 or 3 months.
That's quite a long time.
Yes.
Especially for this time of year.
Yes, it may be best to speak to Mrs. McCrae first out of everybody to get you a bit of a grasp on kind of the events leading up to what's happened after we've visited the site, of course.
I just find it hard to believe she was here on a holiday. There must have been some purpose, which is worrying.
Jemima will kind of glance down at the table again and gesture to it all and look up to Reverend Moore and say, Reverend Moore, have you had any further insight through your research and readings?
Unfortunately not. most of what Mary has just recounted to you there is a result of this. But slim pickings, I'm afraid, with regard to information without actively speaking to people. Yes, I'm hoping to, within the next couple of days, find out exactly which group it is that she's been working with, and then from there we can, hopefully try and get some idea of what's going on, coupled with what you may find out from about Netta's movements ahead of her death, and hopefully find our way towards locating the book.
So you mentioned visiting the site. Then I must admit I'm rather too eager to get going. Terribly sorry.
Yes, of course. Is everybody else ready to head out?
Yes, absolutely.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Jonny, did the documents and the kind of everything in the room, does any of it look like the sort of thing you could understand as a layman, or is it quite impenetrable for Dane?
So a lot of what's around is sort of newspaper cuttings to do with sort of satanic cults in London and things like that, which, you know, are obviously quite sort of sensationalized, but they're obviously trying to pick through it for the bits of truth that might be in each article. There are also what look like copies of there is a copy of Netta's birth certificate, and it's kind of article like things like that around, really. So basically, most of the stuff that they've just given you as information, there is something here to kind of corroborate what they've just given you, basically, whether it be a newspaper article or an official document. So there's her mother and father's birth certificates, her mother's death certificate, and there is also Dion Fortune's birth certificate. There is a local newspaper article about her death and her being found. So yeah, that basically.
Got it. So it's mostly around her and the cults and things. There's not much in the way of information about the kind of the book and other things.
No.
Okay, got it. This is in character. Will we have access to this over the coming days, and kind of gestures broadly to everything in the room?
Yes, of course. You can look at this and see if there's anything that we've missed. You can use this as a kind of secondary base as well as the hotel.
Thank you. I might have a quick look at the local newspaper article, if it says anything more or differently than we'd been told about the death from Mary Brown.
So it mentions that she'd come from London and had been on the island for a couple of months. It also it mentions that where she was found was near, my pronunciation is probably going to be terrible on this, but was near Loch Staunag. Which, you know, maybe Mary and John haven't mentioned that because you don't know where that is, so it's not necessarily relevant to you at this particular time. And yeah, that's really the only bit of information that's in there that you weren't given by them. So yeah, they're both basically up and putting their coats on.
Maybe as we're walking, if it's not lots of people around, you mentioned that the hotel owners, William and Kate, you mentioned that they had been vetted. Does that mean that others should be considered untrustworthy or simply unvetted as yet? Were others ruled out as unsuitable in some way? Is there anyone we should or should not trust?
Trust is an interesting idea. William and Kate are trustworthy in that we don't believe that they are going to harm you in your sleep. They are not trustworthy in the way of you should give them any information on what you are doing.
No, of course not. No.
Other people on the island, we have not vetted. As more information comes to light, it may be that some of these people may have only come to the island in the last 2 months, in which case they are somebody potentially not to be trusted. We're not that far yet. We wanted to give you a safe place to rest.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
So you head out of the village from the other side and start a walk up a reasonably sized hill. Dane probably breathing relatively comfortably by the time you reach the top, and everybody else potentially at least a little out of breath. And ahead of you from here, once you reach the peak, it's not a huge mountain, but probably 300 or 400 feet you've climbed. You're then along a kind of ridgeway which drops down, and you can see a lock down in this area, and you follow the path down into this kind of recessed area. The sun has now blasted away most of the mist. When you're kind of up at the top, there is still some there because it hasn't completely lifted the full height. But as you drop down, you come out of the mist again, and it's quite a pleasant morning now. So, yeah, you work your way down this path, again, sort of open plain and fields ahead of you. And then you're kind of expecting sort of something. You're almost expecting to see something that is obvious to you, and then suddenly Mary and Reverend Moore just stop walking. And they kind of look to the side and then go, yes, and then take a few steps off the path. And you see ahead of you a small mound. And as you get closer to it, you see a cross cut into the mound. And Mary says, well, here we are.
So, just to get my head around it a bit more, so this is like a mound of earth. That's like
it's sort of like a small kind of hillock. So it is grassy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just dirt, but yeah, it's just a natural and it's sort of 2 foot high. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not like the fort where you may be able to enter. It's like it really is quite small.
And did you say the cross was carved into it, or was it standing up in it?
No, it's kind of carved in.
Carved in. Okay.
So
Just like
cut through the turf, that sort of thing.
Is it on the sort of vertical part of it, or on the roof?
Sort of on the side. Yeah. So as you're stood looking at it, you can see it kind of like facing you almost.
Okay. And how can it? What are the dimensions of it? And does it look like it's very deep, or is it just like carved like a few inches out of the turf?
Yeah, it's just sort of like as if you took sort of a wildman's knife and sort of cut in.
And is it like a theological cross, or is it just an X?
No, it is sort of like a cross. Yeah.
And sorry, is it facing out like towards the ocean, or is it facing back towards like the town?
It's kind of facing towards the path.
nowhere in particular.
Yeah.
And was she below? She was found underneath it, or sorry,
She
I think
was
you didn't
found
mention it.
sort of atop the mound.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Like lying on top.
Yeah.
I guess as you're thinking that, Jemima will probably ask, so how do we know how she was found here? I guess we can talk to the people who found her about it, but she was just laying here?
Yes, we believe so.
I guess go have a really close look at where she was supposed to have been laying then.
Yeah. Do you want to make an idea roll?
Okay. Oh, that's a good roll, because that's just my intelligence. Yep. That's it. Jemima wonders whether the cross was already cut into this or whether it was done at the time. Mm-hmm.
And if so, what with?
Okay. So based on that thought, I'm kind of, given I would probably assume originally that it was obviously done at the time or sort of thing. Am I kind of thinking it's old, or am I thinking it might have been there a few days before and then she died on it, sort of thing? You know, I'm not thinking it's 100-year-old, for example.
It's more sort of you don't know, based on what they've said to you about how she was found, you don't know how it would have been done if it were done at the time.
Okay. I see what you mean. Okay, so it kind of would seem logical that it was here before. Okay. I think Jemima's probably inspecting the edges of the cuts in the ground and stuff while this is...
This is still awfully familiar to me somehow. Cross on the hillock.
That's... Now you come to mention it. Yes, last night I did have a dream, actually, of a hillock and a black cross and a green light as well, I think.
Yes. Oh, it's so frustrating how these things just slip away from you. But yes, there was now that you say it, a green light. What on earth could that mean? This was just last night, wasn't it? And she died several days ago.
Yes.
So they don't coincide.
Anyone who's remembered the dream, can you make a sanity roll, please, based on the whole shared dream scenario again?
I guess we all would have overheard. We'll all have overheard that exchange, will we? If we were up
I'm
there.
not trying to avoid sanity loss, but I actually think Jemima was kind of fastidiously examining and probably wouldn't be thinking about it at this moment.
Okay, that's fine. We can save yours for later.
18, so I succeed.
Okay.
I succeed.
So I think Dane was probably close enough to overhear, and he hasn't said anything, but is just kind of shaking his head. He fails.
Okay, just one sanity loss for Dane.
Okay.
I think it's understandable that a lot of people, like the things that you've seen and you kind of accept as reality now, I think having a shared dream again is not necessarily. But then out of everybody, it also makes sense for Dane to fail it, because I feel like Dane has distanced himself the most from it over the course of time. So
as anybody else have this one then? Look at the Reverend and Mary.
Not I, Mary. No.
And is this something that happens a lot in your line of work?
It's certainly been known to happen, yes.
Is that the dreams or the dead girls appearing on crosses?
I was meaning the dreams in this instance.
Does seem almost ritualistic, doesn't it? And we were worried about that before. Years ago.
Do we know the exact day when she was found?
Sorry.
Yes. The 19th.
Do we know the 19th? It's November, isn't it? Is it November?
Yes, it was a Tuesday.
Yeah, 19th of November.
So
for some reason, is it?
So the letters were delivered to you on the 20th, and you came on the 21st.
Okay.
I think Jemima has kind of finished her bit of investigation now and just goes, I'm not certain, but it occurs to me that I think this was cut before she died here, or her body was laid here, or something. It'd make more sense, at least, to be that way around.
Do we know how long she'd been here after her death? How long the body had lain undiscovered for?
Currently, the death certificate states that she died between 10 p.m. on November 17th and 1:30 p.m. on November 19th.
Huh. Not especially helpful.
You say it makes sense that this cross would be here before she died or before she was placed here. I'm not sure we can rely on sense. That dream, the light appeared and then a cross sort of burned or created itself into the hillock.
Jemima's kind of scowling and goes, "Dream?" Now remembers dream, like looking at everyone else. Should I make that sanity check, Jonny?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
You can't escape.
I'm all good.
But in the dream, wasn't it that a cross lowered onto the hill rather than being cut into it? I have a.
So, yes, it was like a cross sort of turned black. Like the silver, yes. Not like this cross, but like the one on her chain. I take it the chain is with the body or has been taken into police evidence or something like that. It's inaccessible now.
Yes, everything is a little like that at the moment, I'm afraid. I'm trying to get around it without drawing undue attention.
Is her body still on the island?
Yes.
Perhaps drawing undue attention should be the priority, I suppose, though, for all of us, given that there's probably people here involved in all this.
Do they even have like a local policeman? Is it something like that, or is there somebody been sent over from the mainland? Or
No, they have 2 volunteer policemen.
right, I see.
I think, although Jemima's not necessarily expected to find anything, she's having a really close look around at the ground around the cross cut into the hill. Because presumably the ground is quite soft, so there could be tracks or marks in the ground or evidence of other people or things being moved around here.
I think Eliza was similarly looking.
Miss.
Well, I was going to say Eliza was maybe looking to the ground, thinking more specifically around trapdoors, given the previous experience.
Is there any buildings or like houses or anything that are visible from, or that the mound is visible from, kind of thing? If you see what I mean.
No.
Okay.
At least not that you can see currently. So there's still small sprinklings of mist around. But apart from that, it's pretty clear. And from where you're stood, you can't see any buildings. Like I said, this is in a kind of recessed, so you're sort of on 3 sides almost, obscured here. So you're obscured from the village. And there may be sort of farmhouses and stuff further out of the open end of this area, but you can't see them currently from where you are.
Does this hillock, does it look like the one in the dream, or is it just...
Kind of. The dream was so abstract to you that everything was sort of, the edges were soft on everything, so it's not like you could say this has the same flow as that, because it was all just sort of, you were aware that it was a hillock, and if you really thought about it, was it definitely a cross shape that had gone in, but it was a cross that went in, that dream logic where it's kind of
yeah
that's what it is, but whether it actually looked exactly like this, you couldn't tell.
I guess I'll be sort of slowly turning around and trying to check for landmarks on the horizon, things that stand out, cursing that I didn't bring a compass with me, and I think I'll make a note that getting a compass might well be a thing I try to do in the next day or so.
You may not know the answers to this. It may be something we need to ask the locals, but these hillocks, are they natural or are they some sort of ancient, built up sort of burial type of thing? Are there any entrances? Are there caves inside? Anything like that? Any reason to believe there might be something beneath this?
As far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think that they're all, or mostly anyway, sort of bits of stonework of old buildings that have been overgrown over time. I don't think that there's any particular reason to presume that any of them contain a building as such. For example, the one at Sir John's house, I don't have any reason to think that this is that same kind of hill fort structure. I mean, this one obviously isn't, but I don't have any reason to believe that any of these slightly larger ones might be. That you may be able to enter any of them.
It's the similarity with the mounds at Fingask, but also something nagging me about that dream, almost like the light became the hillock. It just makes me wonder if there's something else about it other than the obvious.
There indeed must be something significant about that dream and the relationship to this. I think you're correct to try and gain as much insight from it as possible. I feel like
Don't
this.
know what insight to draw.
I feel like you're right to think about the location as well. I mean, it seems easy to just say this is a well hidden spot, I suppose, although it's quite close to the path. But it's not visible from anywhere. But it's clearly been done upon this small mound. I really think there must be something about it.
Perhaps we might.
Sorry, Edmund.
Perhaps we might try a spot of. I mean, my forte is not archaeology, but would anyone mind if we did a little digging at this spot, just to, if the police investigation is considered closed? I don't know.
Well, I suppose if the matter is closed, they'd have no reason to object. And if they objected, then surely they would believe there's something else going on. In which case, they'd have to tell us what, surely.
My only caveat on this would be to maybe speak to some villagers first and just try and glean from them if this area has any significance. Any reason that anybody would be upset.
Yes.
Completely agree.
It's why I asked. And as I said, we can certainly ask the locals. I wouldn't want to upset anybody.
I imagine there would be no issue, but best to check these things when we're trying to be as welcome as possible for as long as possible.
It would be interesting to learn a little about the local law, perhaps. Just as background.
I suppose the only other thing worth considering is that maybe the space isn't in itself significant. Perhaps the significance is in the cross being placed here. Perhaps that's what's has now lent it significance, but it's hard to tell which way's backwards, which way's forwards.
But I feel like if they could have chosen anywhere on the island or anywhere to put a cross like this, surely they would have done it somewhere more secretive. I mean, here is not bad, but what came 20 feet from the path?
Well, there's the question of whether Nora died at the spot or was moved here. I would be very surprised if this spot didn't have some sort of significance to somebody.
Precisely. If she died here, that means she was here for a reason. There must have been some significance to this spot.
Jonny, did we see anything in terms of tracks or anything else sort of underfoot around this area in the hillock?
So the path is sort of stone, so not stone, but sort of a trod path. So there's nothing obvious there. There are a couple of areas sort of around here where the grass is all flattened, but there has been a police investigation, probably journalists. So, it's probably not of much use to your investigation in terms of you can't say, oh, well, somebody's been here, because people have been here, unfortunately.
But nothing else unusual, like, lions-shaped paw prints or anything?
No, not that you can see.
No circuses. Is the lock within view, or is it?
Yes, yeah, you can see the lock. Yeah.
How far away is it? Sort of.
You would guess. Although anybody who's walked or done anything around areas like this can attest that you think it's 2 minutes away and it takes you half an hour. But you would guess it's probably a 10-minute walk.
Okay, right.
From where you are to the lock.
Right. Okay.
It might be redundant to say this, but anyone who is involved is either still here or has left. Do they have records at the ferry of who comes in and who leaves?
Well, I'm sure that delightful ferryman will.
He took our names, didn't he? Must be record. There were tickets and things, weren't there?
Yes, if pre-booked, then then they take names. Whether or not somebody involved in this would have been, I mean, in some way they would want to pre-book if they were planning something for a specific time to be able to make sure they could get off the island. But on the other hand, probably wouldn't want to give over their names to say that they'd left at a particular time. So it may well be worth an inquiry.
And they must have stayed somewhere too. Perhaps there can't be that much accommodation here. It's a lot of work for a day to come in and out. Kind of looking at the cross and yeah.
And there are only 4 ferries a day, I believe. The gentleman told us.
That's time enough.
Hmm.
It's not a big island. Good walk here. Get up to all sorts of nonsense in the morning. Be back by it, certainly at least by the evening ferry.
Well, it seems like there's not much more we're going to be able to gain from the ground here. It's been well trod since the incident, it looks like. Who is it you thought we would best speak to first, Miss Brown? Miss Brown? Muted.
Potentially Mrs. McCrae, the farm owner who Netta lodged with while she was here.
Sounds like a good idea. We might as well head there, I suppose, then, if that sounds agreeable to everyone.
Yes, do you know the way?
Yes. Perhaps we can give you directions and we can head back and continue on with our investigations. Well, you'll be best off setting off from the village anyway, so we'll head back that way together, and then we'll let you know where to go. So you head back to the village. Up the hill, the mist is now completely cleared, and it's actually quite a nice, sort of crisp, cold, late morning. You drop back down into the village and towards the centre of the village, and back to the front of the house in which they're staying. And Mary says, right, is there anything else that any of you need before we send you off on your way?
Do you
any
happen
other
to have
information, equipment?
I mean, if you happen to have a map of the island, perhaps, and a compass, that might be useful.
Reverend Moore says, yes, I'll be out in a moment. Heads
Thank
up
you.
inside.
Oh, you're on mute, Sam.
Thank you. Before we part ways, Mrs. Brown, it's probably another awkward one to answer. Do you suspect we are in imminent danger, or do you suspect the danger may have passed?
I would not wish to put you in a false sense of security. However, I don't have any reason to believe that anyone is now acting maliciously on this island.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Believe me, I'm not going to be relaxing.
Reverend Moore returns with a map and a compass and passes them to Edmund.
Thank you very much. I'll sort of unfold it and start studying, trying to figure out where the spot was that the body was found.
Yeah, so the Reverend Moore kind of stands next to you and has a pen and sort of marks out a couple of areas with you. So he marks that area on. He marks the McCrae farmhouse on there, and puts kind of an X where the Argyle Hotel is, where you're staying.
Important.
Just for ease. Is there anywhere else that you would like marked on here, Mr. Carter? Anybody else?
Sorry, did you say the ferry crossing was marked?
I can put that on.
Yeah. Oh yes, please.
Where would we find this Cameron Ferguson? Is it Jimmy Doherty?
Doherty. Yes.
Doherty.
He puts another 2 small marks on that are quite near each other on the map. So they are sort of to the north of the area that you were just in. So sort of past the lock from where you were. And whereas the McRae farm is sort of further out of this end of the village from where you are. So pretty far removed from each other, you would note.
How, like, now that Jemima has a quick look at the map as well, how big, very roughly, is the island, having not been to Iona? Is it? It's not a very big. It wouldn't take a particularly long hike to get from one end to the other, correct?
It would take you.
Sorry, awkward question. Very rough.
No, it's fine. I think it's probably a couple of hours across. I think.
Okay. So I think Jemima might comment that as we're kind of looking at the map. It's not the biggest island, I suppose. It wouldn't take particularly long for people to get across it, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah, it wouldn't. It's probably half an hour to cross, I think.
Right, should we go to see Mrs. McRae then? Or will she be working? Would we be absolutely disturbing her just now?
We can find out. I'm sure she won't mind talking to us briefly.
Hopefully, yes. All right, shall we go on there then?
Besides, it's not the busiest season for the farmers.
One thing, I think, having had the experience of realizing that everybody's had the same dream, I think Dane is feeling a little bit more concerned than he was about the gap in knowledge that he has compared to everybody else. So maybe if we are walking around and nothing else is going on, once the Reverend and Mary are not with the group anymore, he's probably going to bother Jemima and Edmund and Eliza a little bit with a few kind of questions here and there about what they think about the book and just bits and bobs, so that he feels he's kind of building himself up to more of a level playing field. He wasn't previously interested, but now I think he's realized that it might be necessary.
I'm personally really keen to role play the first Dane asking, "What do you know about the book?" That just sounds like a darling moment. Who do you ask?
So I think if we're walking together, I think he will initially pull kind of Jemima aside slightly, as he's more comfortable with Jemima. Just say, "Miss Wallace, I hate to bother you, but I'm feeling a little left behind. I want to help. I want to contribute. I'm here, but I just don't have my head around what is happening here. The occult groups, this book. What could their motives be? What does the book do? I know maybe we don't know, but maybe you can tell me a bit about your thoughts, because I really don't understand."
I think Jemima tries to clasp your hands in a comforting manner, and then be like, "Dane, please. We've known each other long enough. Call me Jemima. It's okay. I know it's very odd. It's been an odd few years for me, still coming to terms with the fact that this is real. But yes, it seems it is. All of this, in one way or another, there's many things beyond our reality that seem to be true. I know I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but it's easy for those of faith to believe in things beyond what we can perceive. But there's certainly many things beyond what we can perceive, not just things within typical theologies, it seems. I have found books about it. You know, the book that we discovered in the village. But there's actually quite a lot out there, it seems like, written, going back well into our past.
What is the application of any of this?
Gosh.
What could be? Any ideas?
Anything you could possibly imagine, I suppose.
Can we overhear this, or are you trying to be quite private about this discussion?
I guess it was more Dane's choice than mine, because did you pull us aside specifically, or?
I think Dane is a little self-conscious about this at this point, but equally, he knows that Eliza, Edmund are kind of again further down this path, and that you guys have had some conversations amongst yourselves. So maybe what starts as a quiet conversation will, once he's been put at ease, he's maybe being a bit more vocal, and if you guys overhear, he wouldn't be kind of trying to dodge you.
Okay.
If you wanted to get involved.
Saying applications could be anything. I really don't know. You've seen some of the things that we saw. I believe that whatever powers exist could be used to harm or kill people, I suppose, or put visions into their minds, and how you just see places you wouldn't otherwise be able to see.
To me, it just felt like chaos. And if people are trying to use this in some way, then I suppose it would help for me to try and understand their motivations, if this is our job.
I think I might look at Edmund at this moment and say, chaos is exactly how we perceive it. I think because whatever these things are, they're not meant for us to perceive them. They're not by us at all, so it's very difficult for us to understand them.
Yes, we have a limited frame of reference. So you have to bear in mind that things that seem entirely unacceptable to our eyes might just be just another way of looking at things from a different point of view. In terms of applications, you ask about applications. The little that we saw of the book, and I'll glance at Eliza, seemed to refer to ways of contacting other things. I believe that the person that invited us in so many years ago had tried, maybe successfully, to use this book to contact one particular entity, and he was found by another. So they bring worlds together, it seems.
You're being very literal and technical about this, both of you, honestly. I mean, we don't understand this, but since when has that ever stopped people from meddling with things that they don't understand? That
Very
doesn't
true.
stop us caring about applications. The fact that there are these groups out there apparently now trying to find things out about this or stealing this book in some sort of way. I mean, who knows what Sir John was trying to do? Maybe he had no idea what he was doing. Or maybe he was trying to contact something. Curiosity was his real driver. It wasn't summoning something specific. He was just meddling. That's all he was doing, surely.
He wanted money.
Wow.
He wanted money.
Eliza has the right of it, I think. It is simple human curiosity that drives everyone who gets into these things. But I suppose we must be cautious ourselves in our hubris that it is curiosity that's brought us here as well.
And then this specifically to Jemima, does this scare you?
You'd be a fool if it didn't scare any of us, I think. But I can't shy away from it. It feels almost like a calling now, discovering these things. It's a new horizon to me.
Can you blame people for finding something of significant power in this sort of way and trying to affect change in the world? It was inevitable. If something like this exists, it was going to be misused or used, perhaps. Perhaps it's not all bad. Like I said, Mary was able to stop that thing using that book. There's some sort of putting things back or some sort of positive application, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is, it seems like someone wants to use it for something. There may be some political purpose behind it all, or perhaps just more curiosity. but I don't think you need to understand it on a technical level. I mean, we were all able to read that thing. Well, not even read it, but just sort of understand it without understanding it. It just sort of existed in our minds. We didn't have to know the science behind it. There's a human driver behind this as much as there is a technical understanding. I think we may need to sort of understand both.
So I think maybe what was initially very kind of enlightening is then I think he's now lost again a little bit, but he's appreciating the openness. So I think he will just say, maybe I'm here to help. If I have any more questions, I will let you know, and just tell me how I can help, and I'm here.
Dane, I think I clasp your hands again at this moment because I really appreciate this. Dane, I think all of us, and I look to the other three of us, all of us have boundless, perhaps even dangerous curiosity, just like anyone else who's trying to find this. Maybe we need someone like you to remind us that these aren't good things.
I have some convincing. I mean, could it not be that this is all, we have it all the wrong way around? People write books to try and explain things they don't understand. Is this just chaos and people are grasping at straws to explain?
But there's so much that cannot be explained by mere chaos.
Okay. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it, and yeah, let us continue.
The important point here is I think that none of us understand this, but it is very beguiling. I guess we'll find what we find, but it's, I think, yes, the more viewpoints we have, the more experiences we can draw on, the more likely it is we'll be able to define at least the beginnings of the nature of this. So yes, your presence here is much appreciated. So thank you for coming.
Let's make haste.
Okay, you. I was going to sound exactly like Zork. Then you are approaching a farmhouse.
Is there a mailbox?
There is a mailbox. So you presumably head up towards the door of the farmhouse.
Yes, I guess Edmund will probably be hanging back slightly in terms of looking around. Who's going to be?
I guess before we go up to the farmhouse directly, we're going to have a moment to just say, are we going to, as we discussed, we probably don't want to wave these around holding that letter that
No.
Immediately. Shall we just say we're friends, we're interested in this? What?
Perhaps I'll glance at Eliza and, we could, there is the journalism angle, perhaps.
Yes.
Journalist? Sure.
I've heard about the story. I'm interested in it.
I'll get my camera.
Well, yes, that would actually really rather lend to the whole thing. Unless, of course, we want to just say that we've arrived and we've heard about the recent goings on, and but why would you speak to us? Perhaps the actually, sorry, John, do you remember from having looked at any of those newspaper clippings on it from back at the house? Had there been like interviews with people, or had it been very just facts of the case? Is there any kind of indication that she might have previously spoken to a reporter?
You couldn't see a previous interview with her. It was mentioned that she had been staying with somebody on the island. Name was not given out. Whether that means they hadn't figured out that it was her, or whether it meant that she had kind of refused to be mentioned, you couldn't say.
And did we know from Mary etc. Whether names, good God, whether she was staying at this, whether people routinely stay with this person, or whether it was a special personal arrangement, or was
she was mentioned as a lodger, so you imagine that they may take on people as lodgers potentially.
I suppose then
Yeah.
Jemima will kind of start to suggest we go. Yes, I think leading as a journalism makes sense. You were a journalist, were you, Miss Smith?
I am.
Sorry.
Ooh.
That's a genuine mistake that Eliza made.
I mean, she might not be at the moment. She might have got fired.
I think that's
as far as she
from
knows.
how this has gone so far. Eliza had assumed that does feel genuinely bad for saying that. Yeah, so she goes, she blushes a bit and says, "Perhaps you could introduce us using your technique."
Well, I'll certainly give it a go. Some people do get a bit nervy about speaking with journalists as well, but I suppose we'll have to hope that she's not one of them. I suppose there are quite a few of us as well, which is perhaps a little unusual, but well, I suppose we'll have to see.
I mean, if necessary, one or two of us could hang back if you think that would be a better approach.
Jemima's got a camera out, making it clear that she thinks she should go.
I mean, we can perhaps just look around the area, and I'm not sure what we'll find, but yes, we don't need all to be present, I'm sure.
Maybe that's less intimidating. This farmer was a woman, correct, Jonny?
Yes.
Yes. Perhaps if us two went, that might be less of a confrontational.
Yes, perhaps. Said by me as the player with the awareness of the irony that Eliza's been a little bit confrontational since all of this.
All of us. Is that okay with you two?
That's fine. Yes.
Yes, of course.
I wouldn't want to get in the way.
Jonny, is the ferry kind of the ferry at this end? Does it have a building or anything, or like is it kind of manned or?
No, there's no. So it's sort of to go on the as far as you're aware, to go on the ferry, you speak to the rude man. That's as much information as you have about the ferry at this moment.
Okay, good to know.
All right.
So are you two pushing up to the door?
Yep.
Okay. You get to the front door, and there is a small piece of paper stuck to it saying "in the barn" and an arrow pointing to the right. And you can see the barn. What are Dane and Edmund doing? Are you literally hanging back, or are you kind of wandering around a bit?
So I think Dane was quite keen to kind of ask at the ferry about what kind of records they keep, but obviously we don't know when the ferry's going to come in. I don't think we've got the schedule, so I think he's going to take Edmund's lead probably, or otherwise just kind of hang back and see what happens.
Yes, I guess I'd probably want to stay out of the way. So hang back, avoid being in direct eye line, I guess. I'd probably be studying the map and sort of getting my bearings, and just using the time to do that.
Okay.
If there's any windows with the curtains open or anything, Eliza might have a bit of a peek through before wandering off to the barn.
Sure, yeah. The curtains are all open downstairs. There's some sort of I don't know if anything was really kitschy in the 20s, but there's some quite sort of kitschy, like pottery stuff around. A kitchen table, a wooden table with like kind of doily things on.
If Eliza lingers too long, Jemima's definitely like looking around awkwardly and kind of trying to stop her.
But it's also in terms of the building itself, it's very much a farmhouse. So you've got sort of your beams, you've got your big open fireplace, very cozy looking inside. But yeah, in terms of belongings and decoration, it's sort of, I don't know what decoration from 50 years ago would look like in the 1920s, but it's dated. Yeah.
Are there any signs around, like, beware of the dog or stuff like that?
No,
Okay.
nothing like that. Beware of the lion.
I was just about to say that.
So yes,
We'll head to the barn then. I won't stay too long, but just have a little nose and then, yeah.
Okay. So all quiet as you're heading round to the barn. One of the barn doors is slightly open. It looks slightly open from this distance. As you get closer, you figure that because it's such a big door, it's probably actually big enough for a person to fit through. And as you get closer and closer, you start to notice the sort of overbearing sound of buzzing. And I think we'll leave it there.
Oh, no.
I love the idea of it's just some nice bees, but because of the insect association, like Eliza's going to start just going.
Oh God, the bees! Yes, not the. Oh no.
I'm
Not
sure
the
it's
bees.
all going to be fine.
Yep. I mean, I was definitely expecting to have a very lovely chat with this woman and for everything to go very smoothly. So, yeah. Oh, no.
Good. Cool. Any questions or comments, please put them in the chat and John can put them up on screen for us. I think the stream dipped a couple of times again. I don't think it's our fault. Insectoid buzzing, always a good time. Thanks, Lord Malice. Yes, always. I'll do recap things for promo. Monday night's Call of Cthulhu, Tuesday night Blades in the Dark, Wednesday night Simba Room. First Saturday of every month is a one shot. So we just had the One Ring this Saturday gone. The VOD for that should be up soon if it's not already on YouTube. I know it's on the Twitch, isn't it? But I'm not sure if it's on YouTube. And the next one will be the 4th of September. 4th of September, the first Saturday in September, and we don't know what that's going to be yet. And every other Sunday we have a guest spot on the Free League Twitch running Simba Room, and the next one is this coming Sunday, which is the 15th. And I think that's everything.
It's the final episode as well.
Is it?
All building to an exciting conclusion.
Are we continuing the guest spot after that?
Do
you know? I don't know.
I don't. I think that will be the end of the series as it is. Whether anything happens after that is, I guess, open to question.
Cool.
So yeah.
Any more questions or comments? Please fling them our way.
Did you enjoy, Jonny? You probably had the ending time planned, and then Dane threw in the half-hour discussion section.
I really liked
it, and I did that.
I really liked the.
I think it was wonderful. It just probably really messed up your ending timings, didn't it?
No, not at all. I was also really tempted to just end it at the really nice point in your discussion, but. I think there was a point where I was like, I'm going to end it right now. And then somebody else said something and I went, I'll wait now. Cause that was it. And that was going to be a really nice ending. And now it's just going to be not nice instead.
Players, eh?
you need secret hand signals to sort of like,
I know.
Stop talking.
So perfect.
Will the players eat the honey that they will be offered? That's from 4242. Yes. Let me know now whether you will eat the honey that you've been offered. It's been stolen from HoneyCon 2017 and kept here.
All the worlds are colliding.
If it's from Abe Lincoln's hive, then 100% that's some historical honey. Thank you very much.
If you haven't seen Honey Heist, go watch Honey Heist. It was amazing.
On a slightly linked tangent, I once ran a game of... quickly, while these are on my screen, some follows over the last few days. A. Marcel, Behuziman, Call of the Bears, Andric Norse Foundry Crew. Thanks for the follows. I once ran a game of Kuro, which is a Japanese horror cyberpunky sort of like The Ring meets cyberpunk, I guess.
Right.
And in the very first session of it, the group were offered some tea, which then turned out was drugged. And then in no game that I've run for them since then will any of them accept a drink of tea from anybody, because that started their horrible thing. So that was
Nice.
fun. Yeah. Are there any more questions or comments? Nobody answered if they're going to eat the honey yet. I want a yes or no from everybody about eating the honey.
Oh, we know what Jemima's going to do. Come on. She does everything.
It's a hard
where
yes.
Oh, I mean, if the honey is offered at at the Argyle, is it Argyle? Then probably, because it depends. Edmund hasn't seen anything yet. If there's a body covered in bees, then Edmund might not be quite so taken with honey.
Or a body covered in the honey you're supposed to be eating.
That would be, that's not great either.
You guys, it's so dark. We're going to go in there. Mrs. McRae is just going to be a beekeeper, and she's going to have some fresh honey.
Nice.
It's going to off the comb. It's going to be beautiful.
I mean, to be fair, if Jonny was really throwing it in, if there was a giant insect person inside the barn right now, that would elevate to 11.
Wow.
This campaign.
She's just massively into
almost-
agriculture and noise music.
Yeah, doing that would be almost like having a lion walk into the dining hall.
Almost.
Who
do
would do that?
I love that this one is now like a murder mystery. Like third arc is a totally different style again.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I wasn't expecting that. And
Yeah,
it's
right.
quite fun. Love a good murder mystery.
Trying to keep it fresh.
Nice.
We don't have any more questions or comments, so thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Steve, Inga, Sam, Matthew, and John. And we will catch you all next week, unless you watch Blades in the Dark tomorrow, Symbaroom on Wednesday, or Symbaroom again on Sunday, in which case we'll catch you then instead. Bye-bye.